It was a picture-perfect vacation, or at least it started that way. Abby Lutz, 28, a nanny from Utah working in sunny Orange County, California, and her boyfriend, John Heathcote, 41, a self-proclaimed health nut and founder of a nutritional supplement company, were living their best lives in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. They'd chosen the luxurious Rancho Pescadero Hotel for their romantic getaway, splurging on a $780 a night room surrounded by pristine beaches and endless margaritas. But as anyone who's ever booked a too-good-to-be-true vacation knows, paradise sometimes comes with fine print. June 12, 2023, started out like any other dreamy day in Cabo. Sun, sand, and maybe a touch too much guacamole. But by nightfall, Abby and John began feeling sick, seriously sick. Convinced it was just the classic traveler's foe, food poisoning, they made their way to a Mexican hospital for treatment. Severe dehydration, they were told. Fluids were administered, reassurances given, and Abby even managed to text her dad, "Good night, love you," a nightly ritual that had always felt routine. But this time, it was tragically final. The next day, Abby and John returned to their lavish hotel room, likely hoping for some rest and recovery. Instead, the unthinkable happened. Housekeeping entered their room at around 9 p.m. on June 13th to a scene that no one should ever witness. John was found unresponsive in the shower. Abby was lifeless in bed. Paramedics were called, but the couple had already been dead for at least 10 hours, and it wasn't just the eerie stillness that struck first responders. Fernando Valencia, one of the paramedics, recalled walking into the room and immediately feeling dizzy from what could only be described as toxic fumes. "We left the room as quickly as possible. My first thought was, are we going to die too?" Valencia later said. It was, by his account, one of the most terrifying experiences of his career. The initial suspicion, gas inhalation. Autopsies later confirmed that Abby and John had succumbed to intoxication by an undetermined substance. There were no signs of foul play, ruling out anything sinister beyond the invisible danger that had seeped into their sanctuary. Hyatt, which owns Rancho Pescadero, swiftly closed the property for an investigation. In their statement, they assured guests and staff that safety was their top priority. Yet, whispers of faulty infrastructure began to circulate. Abby's family, still reeling from the news, speculated that the deaths were caused by improper venting, possibly carbon monoxide poisoning. For Abby's family, the loss was unfathomable. Her stepsister, Gabby Slate, and stepmother, Raquel Chapini Lutz, shared their grief, recalling Abby's last texts and how she'd described her illness as the sickest she'd ever been. Their sorrow was compounded by unanswered questions. A GoFundMe page was set up to help bring Abby's body home and cover funeral expenses. In their heartfelt plea, the family wrote, "Abby and her boyfriend thought they had food poisoning, but we were told they passed away peacefully in their sleep. We believe it could be carbon monoxide poisoning." The Baja California Sur State Prosecutor's Office stated there were no signs of violence, and while gas inhalation remained the prime suspect, no definitive conclusions had been drawn. For now, the cause of the toxic fumes that claimed 2 lives in paradise remains a chilling mystery. It's the kind of story that makes you second-guess your travel plans. As dreamy as those glossy resort brochures may look, you never know when a paradise escape might have a dark secret lurking in the air. Literally. Abby and John went to Cabo for sun and serenity, but instead they became the haunting cautionary tale of a dream vacation that turned into a nightmare. It was just another humid morning in Geylang, Singapore's red light district. The streets were buzzing, neon lights flickered, and inside one budget hotel, 2 cleaners went about their usual routine. But when one tried to sweep under the bed, it wouldn't budge. It felt heavy. Curious and a little creeped out, they crouched down, and what they saw would haunt them forever. A naked woman's body, crammed beneath the mattress, blood smeared underneath. Her skin was already discolored, veins dark, and the stench unbearable. She'd been there a while. That woman was Radhika Devi Thyagaraja, a 21-year-old Sri Lankan sex worker. She was also 7 months pregnant. Sadly, both she and her unborn baby boy were dead. 2 days earlier, on September 2nd, 2008, Devi had checked in with a man captured by CCTV. Dark-skinned, beige cap, ordinary-looking. That man was Madhuri Jayachandra Reddy, a 20-year-old construction worker from India. They'd agreed on $50 for sex. After 2 rounds, Reddy wanted more. Devi demanded more money. He refused. She threatened to call her agent. That's when it turned violent. In a panicked rage, Reddy strangled Devi with his bare hands. She was pregnant, unarmed, and couldn't fight back. Once he realized she was dead, he tried to hide it, literally. He slashed open the fabric under the bed, shoved her body inside, and laid the mattress back down. Then, get this, he left the hotel, found another sex worker, and came back to the same room to sleep with her. All while Devi's body was still under the bed. The next morning, after the gruesome discovery, police arrived fast. They combed through hotel records, CCTV, and even found a hidden stash of belongings in the bathroom wall. Devi's passport, clothes, and a prepaid SIM card. The medical examiner confirmed the cause of death: manual strangulation. The fetus had died with her. At first, another guest named Sammy, who had checked in just 9 hours before the body was found, was wrongly suspected. But autopsy results cleared him. Devi had been dead much longer. CCTV footage and phone records led police to Reddy. He'd stolen Devi's phone and jewelry and was still using the phone after her death. Officers traced the number, staked out his dorm, and caught him just 22 hours after the body was found. Reddy confessed everything. He said he'd panicked and hid the body. He even admitted to returning with another woman because he thought being seen with a second girl would throw off suspicion. Originally charged with murder, which carries the death penalty in Singapore, Reddy pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of manslaughter. He was sentenced to 17 years in prison and 12 strokes of the cane. So what makes this case so disturbing? It's not just the body under the bed, though that's nightmare fuel. It's the casualness, the coldness, the fact that he literally used the crime scene again. It's something out of a horror movie, except it really happened. Radhika Devi was more than a headline. She was a mother of 2, with another child on the way. Her family mourned her deeply and pushed for justice. While nothing can undo the horror, her story lives on, as a reminder that every life matters, no matter where it ends. It was supposed to be a trip filled with love, family reunions, and scenic escapes. David James Fisk, a 57-year-old business executive from Sydney, Australia, and his partner, Lucita Luke Barron Cortez, 55, were on a vacation they had eagerly anticipated. Accompanying them was Luke's daughter-in-law, Mary Jane Cortez, 30. Their plan was simple: fly from Sydney to Bali, soak up some sun, and then head to the Philippines to visit Luke's children. A brief retreat to Tagaytay's Serene Lake Hotel would be the cherry on top before their return to Australia. But this idyllic holiday turned into an unthinkable nightmare. David and Luce were a beloved couple in Sydney's Sutherland Shire. David, a business development executive at JWA Financials, had a long and respected career in business technology. Luke, originally from the Philippines, was a loving mother and a cherished member of her community. The two were inseparable, radiating warmth and joy. Just last December, they had celebrated the engagement of David's daughter, Lenda, in Sydney. Life was brimming with milestones and happiness. However, on a fateful morning in July 2024, that happiness was shattered. Hotel staff at the Lake Hotel in Tagaytay discovered a grisly scene. David, Luke, and Mary Jane were found dead in their room. Their hands and feet were bound with electrical cords and shoelaces, and their mouths were taped shut. David's throat had been slashed, and both women appeared to have been suffocated. The gruesome discovery sent shockwaves through the local community. Tagaytay's police chief, Charles Davin Kekwan, confirmed that valuables such as phones and other belongings had not been taken, ruling out robbery as the primary motive. CCTV footage offered a chilling clue. A man in a mask, a black hoodie, and maroon shorts was seen leaving the victim's room a few hours before their bodies were found. He carried a sling bag, suspected to contain the murder weapon. Security guard Rodney Parahinog recalled questioning the man earlier that morning. The intruder had shown a key card and claimed to be staying in the room. With this interaction and the CCTV footage, police zeroed in on him as the prime suspect. But who was he, and why commit such a horrific act? Back in Sydney, David's twin daughters, Linda and Brittany, were devastated. Already grieving the loss of their grandmothers to cancer in recent years, the news of their father's violent death was a blow they couldn't fathom. The family released a heartfelt statement. "The love we have for our father and Lucita is so dear, and this situation is like living a nightmare. We pray for answers for the truth and for their safe return to Australian shores." To cope with the aftermath, the family set up a GoFundMe page to assist with the costs of bringing David's body back to Australia and to support the ongoing investigation. Meanwhile, the Lake Hotel issued a statement expressing deep regret over the tragedy. "The safety and well-being of our guests and staff are our top priorities," they said, pledging full cooperation with authorities. Even Tagaytay's mayor, Abraham Tolentino, promised swift action. "We are deeply sorry to our Australian friends. We will resolve this as soon as possible." Police formed a special task force to hunt down the suspect, searching exit points and reviewing more surveillance footage. Theories about the motive swirled, with investigators speculating a personal connection to Mary Jane might have triggered the crime. As the investigation unfolded, the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade provided consular support to the grieving families. David's body was set to return to Sydney, while Luke and Mary Jane were to be laid to rest in the Philippines according to their families' wishes. David, Luke, and Mary Jane were remembered as kind, loving individuals whose lives were cruelly cut short. For their families and friends, the tragedy left an unfillable void. The chilling mystery behind their brutal murders remains unresolved, leaving everyone to wonder, how could a dream vacation end so horrifyingly? As authorities continue the hunt for answers, this tale serves as a grim reminder that even in paradise, shadows can lurk. It started out as a carefree solo adventure. 21-year-old Elisa Lamb, a bright, curious student from Canada, was just beginning her California journey. On January 26, 2013, she checked into Los Angeles' infamous Ceil Hotel, hoping for a few days of urban exploration, bookstore browsing, and fun in the sun. But what was meant to be a dream trip turned into something far darker, and ultimately her last. The Ceil Hotel itself already had a spine-tingling reputation. Serial killers like Richard Ramirez once roamed its halls, and urban legends whispered of ghosts and curses. But Elisa didn't know that, or maybe she didn't care. Just days after she arrived, things got weird. Hotel guests and staff started noticing strange behavior. Elisa was moved out of a shared room after allegedly leaving creepy notes like "go home" and "get out" on her roommates' beds. She was even escorted from a TV taping for acting strangely. Still, no one could have predicted what was coming next. On January 31st, Elisa visited the Last Bookstore, an artsy local spot just blocks away, chatting excitedly with staff about books and souvenirs for her family. But later that day, she vanished. When her parents didn't hear from her, which was out of character, they panicked and called the LAPD. The police scoured the hotel. No signs of forced entry. Her belongings, including meds for her bipolar disorder, were still in her room. Nothing made sense. But then came the elevator video. Released to the public, this footage became one of the most viral and haunting clips on the internet. In it, Elisa presses nearly every button in the elevator, steps in and out, peeks around like someone's chasing her, then gestures as if talking to someone unseen. The door never closes. The video fueled countless theories. Was she on drugs? Was someone stalking her? Was it paranormal? Weeks passed. Then came the water complaints. Guests reported weird-tasting water and low pressure. On February 19th, a maintenance worker went to the roof, checked the tanks, and made a horrific discovery. Elisa's nude body floating inside, her clothes sunk to the bottom. The hatch had been left open. The autopsy found no signs of trauma, no drugs or alcohol, Just one chilling fact: her prescription meds were barely in her system. Experts suggested she'd suffered a psychotic episode, possibly hallucinating and trying to hide from something that wasn't there. They believe she climbed the fire escape, opened the tank, and got inside, but couldn't get back out. And here's the creepiest part: there was no way anyone could have forced her in without leaving marks. No bruises, no cuts, just mystery. Some say it was the dark energy of the Ceil Hotel. Others believe it was the tragic result of untreated mental illness. But the image of Elisa, alone, scared, hiding in plain sight, haunts people to this day. Despite the pain, Elisa's family has continued to honor her memory. They spoke openly about mental health, hoping her story might help others struggling with bipolar disorder. Her online blog, full of raw and heartfelt posts, still resonates with fans who never even met her, but feel like they knew her. Elisa Lam was a daughter, a sister, and a dreamer who just wanted to see the world. Instead, she became the center of one of the internet's most disturbing unsolved mysteries, one that blurs the lines between reality and the unexplainable. And though her story ended in tragedy, the legacy she leaves behind is one that reminds us: check on your loved ones, be kind to strangers, and never underestimate the unseen battles people fight. It was a scorching June day in 2023. The kind that practically dares you to dive into the water. In Hurghada, Egypt, 23-year-old Vladimir Popov was living his dream by the Red Sea, having moved there with his father Yuri to escape the turmoil of war-torn Ukraine. But fate had a different, far darker plan in store. That day, Vladimir and Yuri headed to the beach, their usual escape. A strong swimmer, Vladimir eagerly plunged into the inviting waves. His girlfriend joined him, both unaware of the silent menace lurking beneath the surface. What followed was the stuff of nightmares. A tiger shark suddenly appeared and attacked with brutal force. One moment, Vladimir was floating peacefully. The next, screams filled the air as the water turned into a chaotic swirl. "Papa! Papa! Save me!" Vladimir's desperate cries rang out, freezing Yuri on the shore, powerless to intervene. A bystander captured the horrifying scene on video, the kind of footage you can't unsee. Vladimir fought back with all his strength, but the shark was relentless, delivering fatal bites. A witness, shaken to their core, murmured, "It's eating him now." Within moments, Vladimir was gone, the sea eerily still once more. Local fishermen later caught the shark, discovering Vladimir's remains in its stomach. A grim end to an already horrific ordeal. Shocked beachgoers beat the shark to death, handing it over to marine scientists for further study. Yuri, shattered by the loss, described the tragedy with heart-wrenching clarity. "It all happened in 20 seconds. What kind of help can you give in a meat grinder like that?" His anguish was matched only by the surreal aftermath, as the shark was dissected and prepared for museum display, a macabre reminder of the deadly encounter. The attack spurred Egyptian authorities to close a 74-kilometer stretch of coastline for investigation. Experts speculated about the shark's behavior. Was it pregnant, mistaken identity, or the same predator behind 2 prior fatal attacks? Tiger sharks, known for their aggression, rank among the top species responsible for attacks. Though such incidents in the Red Sea remain rare, only 24 unprovoked attacks have been recorded in Egypt since 1828. Vladimir's death left a lasting scar on the sunny shores of Hurghada, transforming a tourist haven into a scene of tragedy. Yuri, grappling with his unimaginable loss, planned to cremate his son's remains and return his ashes to Russia. "It was an absolutely ridiculous coincidence," he said, struggling to make sense of the senseless. This chilling tale is a haunting reminder of nature's unpredictability. For Vladimir, what began as a day of joy turned into an unforgettable tragedy, leaving Hurghada forever shadowed by the story of his final swim. It was a sunny, ordinary day in downtown Los Angeles back in 1964, the kind where pigeons fluttered through Pershing Square, and 65-year-old Goldie Osgood, known fondly by everyone as Pigeon Goldie, was doing what she loved most, feeding her feathered friends and wearing her LA Dodgers cap with pride. She was staying at the Ceil Hotel just a few blocks away, a place known for its low prices and long-term residents. Goldie had no idea that this day would be her last. She was beloved by everyone in the area, a retired telephone operator living out her final years alone, but certainly not lonely. She had heart, sass, and birdseed. The whole community knew her. She was that sweet, quirky neighbor who'd talk your ear off while shooing away greedy seagulls so the little pigeons could get a bite. She had no enemies, or so it seemed. Later that evening, after a peaceful day at the square, Goldie walked back to her room at the Ceil Hotel. She exchanged goodnights with other tenants, like always, and vanished into her room. An hour later, just an hour, a hotel worker delivering phone books made a gruesome discovery. Goldie was found murdered in her ransacked room. She had been brutally beaten, raped, and strangled with a hotel hand towel. Her birdseed and Dodgers cap lay scattered on the floor, like tragic symbols of a life cut short. What makes this case bone-chilling isn't just the horror of the crime, it's the sheer speed and stealth with which it was carried out. People saw her moments before she was killed. The killer must have been waiting in her room, or shadowing her step, and in a hotel buzzing with residents, not a single person saw anything. Police arrested a suspect named Jacques Eilinger, found wandering nearby, covered in blood, but plot twist. He was quickly ruled out. No charges, no real leads, and no justice. Even creepier, Goldie's murder resembled another woman's death just months earlier. Viva Brown, 50 years old, also strangled in a hotel room nearby. Same method, same victim profile. Police never made a connection, at least not publicly, but one medical examiner was convinced it was the same killer. This led to the chilling theory. A serial killer was stalking elderly women in LA, hiding in plain sight in budget hotels, striking fast and vanishing without a trace. Some even whisper that the killer might have stayed at the Ceil himself, blending into the chaos of a place already crawling with crime. No footage, no sketch, no viral videos to rally justice like the Elisa Lam case decades later. Goldie's story faded into the background of the Cecil's bloody history, overshadowed by Night Stalker headlines and Netflix specials. But here's the haunting part. Her murder remains unsolved. Over 60 years later, her killer has never been found. And if he's still alive, he'd be in his 90s by now, living free. That's the kind of real-life horror no ghost story can top. Still, Goldie's friends never let her memory go. The local community, many of them as poor as she was, came together and planted flowers around Pershing Square. It was a small garden of grief and love. They didn't have much, but they gave what they could. That's who Goldie was, someone worth remembering. There may be no justice for Pigeon Goldie, no viral campaign, no suspects or courtroom trials, but there is this, a story, a quiet legacy, and a message to anyone listening. Kindness matters, even if the world forgets you. So, the next time you walk past a pigeon or find yourself in LA's Pershing Square, maybe drop a few seeds. Say a quiet hello to a lady in a Dodgers cap who never got to say goodbye. It was a bright August morning in 2023, and the tropical paradise of Pattaya, Thailand, was just waking up. Vacationers lounged by the pool, their biggest concern being which cocktail to sip next. But for 32-year-old Daria Yuzifyak and her boyfriend, 30-year-old Oyop Behubny Fedor, both Russian tourists staying at the Seven Seas condo resort, their holiday was about to take a dive, and not the fun, snorkeling kind. By 6 a.m., what started as a romantic getaway had turned into something you'd expect from a true crime documentary. Daria, tragically, fell from their 7th-floor hotel room window in a way that no one, not even the wildest tabloid, could have scripted. CCTV footage captured the chilling moment. Daria dangled by her legs, arms flailing, before plunging headfirst to the ground. Security guards rushed to find her, face down, in a pool of blood, naked from the waist down. It was a grisly scene, the kind of horror story that quickly shatters the allure of vacation resorts. Enter the local police, summoned to make sense of the chaos. On the balcony of the couple's room stood Fedor, visibly drunk, clutching a glass of alcohol like a villain from a bad soap opera. To top it off, he flashed a V for Victory sign at reporters as if he were posing for a travel brochure rather than the aftermath of a tragedy. If uncooperative behavior were an Olympic sport, Fedor would have taken gold. He claimed innocence, denying he was even in the room when Daria fell. But, unfortunately for him, CCTV footage told a different story. The video showed Daria perched perilously on the window, her upper body hanging outside, while Fedor grasped her legs. And then, he let go. Now, whether Fedor was trying to save her or was directly responsible became the big question. Intentional act or a horrific accident? The investigation delved deep, and the plot thickened. Lieutenant Colonel Kaiser Apasso, tasked with unraveling this tangled mess, reported no immediate signs of a physical altercation in their room. Yet, the place was a disaster zone, littered with food containers and empty alcohol bottles. A chaotic snapshot of a night gone wrong. Forensic officers combed through the scene, lifting fingerprints and combing through more CCTV footage to reconstruct what had happened. Adding to the intrigue, Daria had filed a police report just days earlier, on August 11th, claiming she'd lost her passport and needed help getting home. It painted a picture of someone ready to leave, not of someone about to plummet to their death. Fedor, meanwhile, wasn't making things easy for investigators. Contradictory statements, belligerent behavior, and an apparent fondness for denying obvious facts, like being in the room, turned questioning into an uphill battle. A drug test cleared him of narcotics, but his blood alcohol level was likely enough to make a pirate blush. Despite these hurdles, police pressed on, working to build a case. While they detained Fedor for drunken and disorderly conduct and suspected manslaughter, they hit a snag in getting a court's approval to formally charge him with homicide. The evidence was damning, but not quite airtight. Was it a moment of drunken chaos, an intentional crime, or a tragic accident? The case remains a haunting reminder that even in paradise, the unexpected can strike, sometimes from 7 stories up. It was supposed to be a quick, uneventful shopping trip. On a warm March morning in 1995, 32-year-old Gerard Low, a cheerful chemical engineer from South Africa, landed in Singapore. He was just here to grab some electronics, maybe a video recorder or a new pair of kicks. Nothing wild. A dedicated husband and father, Gerard had mapped out his schedule to the hour, even promising his wife Vanessa that he'd call the second he checked into the hotel. But Gerard never made that call, and tragically this trip would be his last. At first, everything seemed normal. After arriving at Changi Airport, Gerard met a charming, friendly Brit named Simon Davis. The man offered to split a hotel room at the Riverview Hotel to save money. It seemed harmless. They checked into room 1511, but what Gerard didn't know was that Simon Davis was actually John Martin Scripps, a convicted British criminal, someone far more dangerous than he let on. The next day, Gerard's name mysteriously vanished from the hotel's registration system. When asked, Martin claimed he had kicked Gerard out for being gay, a claim not only suspicious but tragically weaponized in a country where homosexuality was criminalized at the time. That same day, Martin began using Gerard's credit card to go on a shopping spree around Singapore. $6,000 in bank withdrawals, a $490 camcorder, a pair of $180 Nike trainers, and tickets to a symphony concert. Because apparently murder pairs well with classical music. While Martin lived it up, Gerard had vanished completely. No calls to Vanessa, no return flight, just silence. Then, on March 13th, a chilling discovery. A plastic bag floating off Clifford Pier, containing a pair of severed legs. Over the next few days, more pieces, thighs, torso, all Caucasian, all chopped with eerie precision. It took until April 1st for Vanessa Low to confirm the worst. The remains belonged to her husband. Gerard's head and arms were never found. Authorities suspected foul play from the beginning. The clean dismemberment suggested a disturbing level of skill. A forensic pathologist concluded that whoever did this had training. A surgeon, a butcher, or a prisoner who had worked in a butchery. That last guess, spot on. Martin had learned to cut meat while in prison, and now he was applying that same craft in horrifying ways. Martin's trial in Singapore became infamous. Gruesome photos of body parts were shown in court. Martin claimed Gerard made a sexual advance on him, and in a panic, he struck him with a hammer. He blamed a mysterious British friend for helping him hide the body, but this phantom friend was never found, and his story was full of holes. Martin had even signed restaurant bills and made calls from the Riverview Hotel during times he claimed he was elsewhere. The prosecution believed Martin's motive wasn't panic, it was greed. He'd murdered Gerard to steal his identity and credit, and disturbingly, he'd done this before. Gerard wasn't Martin's only victim, just one in a string of tourists the tourist from hell lured, killed, and butchered. Martin was eventually convicted and hanged in 1996, the first Briton executed in Singapore since its independence. As for Gerard, he wasn't just a victim, he was a loving husband, a father, and a man whose life was senselessly taken. Vanessa and their child were left to pick up the pieces, but they refused to let his memory fade. His murder prompted conversations about hotel guest safety, identity theft, and the dark potential behind a stranger's smile. In the face of such horror, one thing remains clear. Gerard Low was deeply loved, and he is deeply missed. It was October 3rd, 2013, on the idyllic shores of Nosy Bay, Madagascar, a postcard-perfect spot where turquoise waters meet white, sandy beaches. Sébastien Joudelet, a 38-year-old French bus driver, had come to this tropical paradise for a much-needed break. A single father to an 11-year-old daughter back in Montreuil, a Parisian suburb, Sébastien was a frequent traveler to Madagascar, drawn to its beauty and culture. But on this day, what was supposed to be a blissful vacation turned into a nightmare that would shock the world. Unbeknownst to Sébastien, the island was already simmering with fear and anger. Days earlier, an 8-year-old local boy had tragically gone missing, his body later discovered in horrifying condition. The grisly rumors that followed, murmurs of foreign involvement and accusations of sinister crimes, stirred up a frenzy among the residents. Fueled by grief, fear, and whispers of revenge, the community's frustration ignited into full-blown panic. Enter Sébastien and Roberto Gianfala, a Franco-Italian hotel worker in his 50s. On that fateful morning, the two men were confronted by an angry mob of around 300 people. The crowd, consumed by rage and misinformation, accused them of being predators responsible for the child's death. Imagine the shock. You're enjoying a holiday and suddenly you're caught in the storm of an angry, vengeful crowd. Sébastien and Roberto tried to reason, to plead, to deny the unfounded accusations, but logic was no match for the mob's fervor. Sébastien's desperate words were recorded, a haunting echo of his final moments. "I am the victim of a conspiracy. I am innocent," he cried. But when he uttered, "I don't like children," his attempt to distance himself from the allegations backfired horribly. The crowd twisted his words, taking them as an admission of guilt. In a panicked rush to clarify, Sébastien shouted, "I love kids. I have a little girl." But the mob had already decided his fate. The scene that unfolded was nothing short of horrifying. Stripped naked, mutilated, and burned alive on a beach, Sébastien and Roberto met a gruesome end at the hands of vigilantes. Even more chillingly, a third man, the boy's own uncle, was also killed in the same manner. The mob, convinced by rumors and grief, acted as judge, jury, and executioner without a shred of evidence. In the aftermath, Madagascan police confirmed what was tragically clear. There was no connection between Sébastien, Roberto, and the boy's death. Authorities suggested the child might have drowned, and that his injuries were inflicted post-mortem. The murders of these innocent men were based entirely on baseless accusations and hysteria. Back in Montreuil, Sébastien's neighbors were stunned. Described as mild-mannered and friendly, he had no criminal record, no history of wrongdoing, and no ties to the heinous crimes of which he was accused. He was simply a man in the wrong place at the worst possible time. Justice, albeit delayed, began to unfold. Madagascan authorities arrested 26 people linked to the killings, and French detectives launched their own investigation. Eventually, 37 individuals stood trial. While most were acquitted or given leniency, sentences ranged from 3 months to 7 years, a stark reminder of how a moment of collective rage can destroy innocent lives. The tragedy of Sébastien Joudelet and Roberto Gianfala remains a chilling testament to the dangers of mob mentality. Sebastian's vacation ended in a way no one could have imagined, his cries for innocence echoing as a haunting reminder of how quickly paradise can turn to hell. So, if you're ever lounging on a beach sipping a cocktail, remember, sometimes the most dangerous thing in paradise isn't the wildlife or the weather, it's the people. It was just another sunny Bangkok afternoon at the Grand Hyatt Erawan, glamorous, luxurious, everything you'd expect from a 5-star stay. For 6 Vietnamese guests, some with American ties, it was supposed to be a simple business meetup over lunch and tea. No drama, no headlines, just 6 people in a fancy suite, wrapping up a weekend and preparing to fly home. But room 502 would become their tomb. They had no clue that this peaceful lunch would end with all of them sprawled across the floor, lifeless, victims of what would soon be dubbed one of the most disturbing hotel deaths in Bangkok's history. The group had gathered to settle a financial dispute. Serene Chong, a Vietnamese-American woman from Oakland, owed about $280,000 to a married couple, Thi Nguyen Phuong and Hong Pham Thanh. They'd loaned her the money to invest in a hospital project in Japan. Instead of facing each other in court, they agreed to meet in person to talk things out. Serene checked into room 502 alone. The others arrived separately. Also present was Thi Nguyen Phuong Lan, there to mediate, Dang Hung Van, whose role remains unclear, and Din Tran Phu, a well-known Vietnamese makeup artist hired by Serene for the trip. Phu had even messaged his family saying he was staying an extra day. No one imagined it would be the last time they'd hear from him. At 2 p.m., Monday, hotel staff delivered food and 6 cups of tea to room 502. Serene received it and, this is important, refused help brewing the tea even though the waiter offered. He later said she was visibly stressed and barely spoke. By 2:17 p.m., all 6 people were seen on security footage entering the room. After that, total silence. No cries, no calls, nothing. When they didn't check out the next day, staff grew suspicious. Using a secondary door, they entered the suite. What they found was chilling. All 6 guests were dead on the floor. 2 appeared to have crawled toward the door before collapsing. The food was untouched, still wrapped, but every single teacup had been used. Inside those cups, a strange powder. Tests later confirmed cyanide, the kind of poison that can kill in minutes. There were no signs of struggle. The room was locked from the inside. This wasn't a robbery, and it definitely wasn't suicide. One of them had poisoned the tea. Photos of the scene quickly spread online. Pristine dishes, lifeless bodies, and a police diagram of the room fueled viral speculation. Had Serene poisoned everyone out of desperation? She was being sued by every other person in that room. The motive was clear. The tea delivery time lined up, and she was the only one there to receive it. But since she also died, the case hit a dead end. No one else was in that room. No one heard anything. No forced entry. Just 6 people, 1 poisoned pot of tea, and a mountain of unanswered questions. Cyanide, by the way, is brutal. It shuts down your body's oxygen supply from the inside out. Within seconds, you're dizzy. Minutes later, gone. The victims' lips had turned purple. Their organs were blood red. It was swift and silent. Families were left shattered. Din Tran Phu's father said his son was just doing his job, working with clients he trusted. He was 37, successful, and full of life. Now, he's gone without warning. Authorities in Thailand and Vietnam continue investigating. The Vietnamese government got involved quickly, urging justice and answers for the victims. These 6 people were more than headlines. They were loved, they were valued, and they didn't deserve this fate. Their story is a haunting reminder. Even in the most luxurious places, the darkest tragedies can unfold in complete silence.